The shuttle descended through purple clouds toward the Imperial Palace of Draxia Prime. Ambassador Ji-Wan sat quietly in her seat, watching the massive structure grow larger through the window. The palace was built from black stone and stretched across the horizon like a sleeping beast. Towers reached into the sky, each one topped with flags that displayed the Emperor's symbol, a red claw gripping 3 stars. Ji-Wan was 52 years old. Her hair had silver streaks running through the black and her eyes were dark and calm. She wore simple diplomatic robes in Earth's colors, blue and white. On her collar was a small pin showing the United Earth symbol. She looked like what she was supposed to be, a peaceful representative of humanity. Beside her sat Hyunwoo, her assistant. He was 28 and nervous. This was his first major diplomatic mission. He kept checking his tablet, reviewing the briefing documents for the 100th time. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "the reports say Emperor Vorthak is difficult." Ji-Wan smiled slightly. "Most emperors are. But the other ambassadors who came here, 3 of them died in accidents. 2 more disappeared." "I know," Ji-Wan said. Her voice was soft but steady. "That's why they sent me." The shuttle landed on a platform outside the palace gates. When the door opened, heat rushed in. Draxia Prime was a hot world, and the air smelled like metal and smoke. A line of Imperial guards waited for them. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Each one carried a plasma rifle. A thin alien in golden robes stepped forward. "Ambassador Ji-Wan of Earth, I am Keeper Nex. I will escort you to your quarters." His voice was cold, like he was announcing an execution rather than greeting a guest. Ji-Wan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Keeper Nex." They walked through corridors made of polished black stone. Everywhere Ji-Wan looked, she saw guards. The walls were decorated with weapons from conquered worlds. She recognized some of them. Swords from the Kelvin system, energy shields from the Porthos colonies. Each one was a trophy. Each one represented a civilization that had challenged the Draxian Empire and lost. Hyunwoo walked close to her, his eyes wide. "There are so many guards," he whispered. "Yes," Ji-Wan said. "Remember what I taught you. Observe everything. Trust nothing." Their quarters were large but cold. The windows looked out over the capital city, where millions of aliens lived under Vorthak's rule. Ji-Wan could see smoke rising from factories in the distance. She could see patrol ships flying between the buildings. "Rest now," Keeper Nex said. "The Emperor will see you at the evening banquet. Do not be late. Do not bring weapons. Do not speak unless he addresses you first." He left without waiting for a response. When the door closed, Hyunwoo let out a breath. "This place feels wrong." Ji-Wan nodded slowly. She walked to the window and looked out. Her reflection stared back at her, a diplomat, a negotiator, a peaceful representative. But behind her eyes was something else, something old and dangerous that she had buried years ago. She remembered other missions, other names, other faces. She remembered blood and fire, and the weight of a knife in her hand. She remembered being called Baba Yaga, the ghost who walked through walls and left tyrants dead in their beds. But that was the past. She had chosen a different path. She had chosen peace. "Get some rest," she told Hyunwoo. "We'll need to be sharp tonight." The banquet hall was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into shadows far above. Long tables filled the space, covered with food and drink from 100 different worlds. Aliens of every species sat eating and talking. Music played from somewhere, strange instruments that made sounds like crying and laughing at the same time. Emperor Vorthak sat on a throne at the far end of the hall. He was massive, twice the size of a human, with dark red skin and horns that curved back from his head. His eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. Around him sat his advisors and generals. They all watched as Ji-Wan and Hyunwoo entered. The room went quiet. Ji-Wan walked forward calmly. Hyunwoo followed, trying not to shake. Every eye was on them. She could feel the weight of their stares, curious, hostile, amused. When she reached the throne, she bowed. "Emperor Vorthak, I bring greetings from Earth and the United Human Colonies." "We are honored to sit," the Emperor said. His voice was deep and rough. "You will sit there." He pointed to a table near his throne but lower down. It was a deliberate insult. Ambassadors were supposed to sit at the Emperor's table. This placement showed everyone that humans were beneath the Emperor's notice. Ji-Wan sat without complaint. Hyunwoo sat beside her, his face red with anger at the insult. She touched his hand briefly, a warning to stay calm. A tall alien in dark armor approached their table. "I am Lord Kane, the Emperor's chief advisor. You come seeking trade agreements, yes?" "Yes," G1 said. "Earth wishes to establish mining rights in the Terran sector. In exchange, we offer—" "The Emperor does not trade," Lord Kane interrupted. "The Emperor takes. You will surrender your mining colonies. In return, he will allow Earth to continue existing." Silence fell across the nearby tables. Everyone was listening now. G1's expression didn't change. "That is not acceptable. Earth's colonies are sovereign territory. We will negotiate fair terms or we will develop the sector ourselves." Lord Kane's eyes narrowed. "You refuse the Emperor?" "I decline an unfair proposal," G1 said calmly. "That is why I am here, to find terms that benefit both our peoples." Lord Kane stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Humans," he said loudly. "So weak yet so proud. You think you can refuse us?" He walked away, still laughing. The banquet continued. Food was brought to their table, strange meats and vegetables that Hyunwoo was afraid to eat. Ji-won ate small portions, always watching the room. She saw Lord Kane talking to the Emperor. She saw guards positioning themselves near the exits. She saw the way other ambassadors avoided looking at her. Then a servant brought wine. It was dark red and smelled sweet. Hyunwoo reached for his glass, but Ji-won caught his wrist. "Don't drink," she whispered. "Why not?" "Just trust me." But the servant stood there waiting. Everyone was watching. To refuse the Emperor's wine was another insult. Ji-won picked up her glass. She met Lord Kane's eyes across the room. He was smiling. She drank. The wine burned going down. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Ji-won felt her throat closing. Her vision blurred. The room began to spin. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't work. "Ambassador!" Hyunwoo caught her as she fell. "Someone help!" "She's been poisoned." But the guards didn't move. Nobody moved. Ji-won collapsed onto the floor, her eyes closing. The last thing she saw was Emperor Vorthak standing from his throne, looking down at her with satisfaction. "Another weak human falls," the Emperor announced to the hall. "Take her body to the incinerators. Let this be a lesson to all who refuse the Draxian Empire." Guards grabbed Ji-won's limp body. Hyunwoo screamed and tried to fight them, but more guards seized him and dragged him away. The banquet continued as if nothing had happened. Music played. Aliens laughed and ate and drank. Lord Kane approached the Emperor's throne. "It is done, my lord. The human ambassador is dead. We can proceed with the invasion of their colonies." Emperor Vorthak nodded slowly. "Good. Humans are too weak for this galaxy. We will teach them their place." But neither of them knew the truth. Neither of them knew what they had just awakened. They didn't know that the poison coursing through Ji-won's body was being broken down by augmentations installed decades ago. They didn't know that her unconscious mind was already planning, calculating, preparing. They didn't know they had just tried to kill Baba Yaga. And Baba Yaga never stayed dead. Part 3. The Death World revealed Council historian Pendak had studied hundreds of species across thousands of worlds, but nothing had prepared them for Earth. The research vessel dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system, and immediately every sensor began screaming warnings. Radiation levels dangerous. Gravitational stress extreme. Orbital debris hazardous. The system's star burned too hot, too bright, too unstable. "This can't be right," said one of the science team, a floating ethereal named Vescon. No one could evolve intelligence in these conditions, but the sensors didn't lie. As they approached the third planet from the sun, the readings got worse. Earth spun too fast, creating violent weather systems that could be seen from space. Its moon was too large, creating tidal forces that should have made the planet uninhabitable. Its axial tilt was too severe, causing extreme seasonal variations. Pendak checked their data 3 times. "The classification is wrong," they said quietly. "Earth isn't a Class 6 or 7 world. It's a Class 9.7. The science team fell silent. Class 9.7 was theoretical. It was the rating for worlds so hostile that life should be impossible, let alone intelligent life. Only one other species in the galaxy came from a world rated above 9, and they had died out in their industrial age, too aggressive to stop killing each other. "How did humans survive?" Feskin asked. "Let's find out," Pendak replied. They spent weeks studying Earth, and each discovery was more shocking than the last. The atmosphere contained 20% oxygen, a concentration most species considered toxic. The gravity was 1.3 times galactic standard, enough to crush smaller species. Temperature ranges spanned hundreds of degrees across the planet's surface, but it was the life that truly horrified them. Dr. Sun Wuhan met them at a research facility in Seoul, greeting them with the same gentle smile humans always wore. But now, knowing what Pendak knew about this world, that smile looked different. It looked like the expression a predator might make before striking. "Welcome to Earth," Sun Wu said. "I understand you want to learn about human evolution." The lecture room was comfortable by human standards, but uncomfortable for everyone else. Too warm, too much gravity, too much oxygen. The council observers felt like they were drowning in air while being pressed into their seats. Sun Wu began with a simple image, a human skeleton. "Notice the forward-facing eyes," she said. "This is a predator trait. Our ancestors hunted prey by sight. Notice the leg structure. We're built for endurance running. We evolved by chasing prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion." Pendak felt sick. "You ran them to death?" "Yes," Sun Wu replied. "No other animal on Earth can match human endurance. We can run for hours without stopping. In the heat, in the cold, across any terrain. We simply outlast everything else." She showed them videos of Earth's wildlife. Lions that could kill with a single bite. Crocodiles that hadn't changed in millions of years because they were already perfect killing. Machines, sharks, bears, wolves, snakes with venom that could drop a human in minutes. "And you survived among these?" Fesikan asked. "We did better than survive," Sun Wu said. "We thrived. Because while we're not the strongest or fastest or most venomous, we're the most adaptable. We can eat things that would poison most species. We heal from wounds that would be fatal to you. We can function on minimal sleep, survive massive temperature swings, and adapt to nearly any environment within a generation." Ensign Bora Yang joined the lecture to discuss human history. She was young, fresh from the academy, and spoke with the casual confidence of someone who didn't realize how terrifying her words were. "Humanity has been fighting wars for our entire recorded history," she explained, pulling up images that made the council observers gasp. Cities destroyed, weapons that could level mountains, conflicts that killed millions. We've never stopped. Even now we still have disagreements and conflicts. We just handle them differently. "How many wars?" Pendak asked weakly. Bora thought for a moment. "Recorded? Thousands. Probably tens of thousands if you count tribal conflicts. We estimate that for 90% of human history, some group of humans was at war with another group." "How did your species survive?" Feskin asked, echoing the question that had haunted them since arriving at Earth. "We're very good at surviving," Bora said simply. "It's what we do best." While the Council learned about Earth, the Vrex Dominion launched their promised assault. Supreme Commander Zalthor led 300 warships toward human space, confident in their numerical superiority. The humans had won one battle, but war was different. War was about resources, logistics, and overwhelming force. The Vrex had all three. What they didn't have was experience fighting an enemy like humanity. The first human colony they attacked was Delta Pavonis III, a mining world with only 30,000 inhabitants. Zalthor expected quick capitulation. Instead, his fleet ran into defensive networks that should have been impossible for such a small colony. Orbital platforms opened fire with weapons that punched through Vrex shields. Fighter squadrons launched from underground hangars that sensors hadn't detected. The colony's civilians evacuated to bunkers that could withstand direct bombardment. "They fortified a mining colony?" Zalthor's tactical officer asked in disbelief. "They fortify everything," came the response from intelligence. "Every human colony has military-grade defenses. Every city can become a fortress. Every civilian has basic combat training." Zalthor felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest. Doubt. The battle for Delta Pavonis III lasted 2 weeks. The Vrex took the planet eventually, but at a cost that shocked them. They lost 40 ships. 40. Against a small mining colony that shouldn't have had any military presence at all, and when they finally landed troops, they found the humans had collapsed the mines and poisoned the ore. The conquest had gained them nothing but empty tunnels and dead soldiers. "What kind of species does this?" Zalthor asked, staring at reports of scorched earth tactics. "They destroyed their own resources rather than let us have them." His intelligence officer pulled up historical files from Earth. "They have a saying, Commander, If I can't have it, neither can you. They'd rather destroy everything than surrender. The Vrex pushed deeper into human space, and each victory cost more than the last. Human pilots flew with a recklessness that seemed suicidal, until the Vrex realized it wasn't recklessness at all. It was calculated risk-taking that no sane species would attempt. Because humans had a different definition of acceptable risk. Human pilot would deliberately damage their own ship if it meant destroying 2 enemy vessels. They would fly through debris fields that should shred their craft. They would use tactics that assumed casualties because humans understood that sometimes winning meant being willing to die. The Vrex didn't understand this. Their culture valued individual survival. Human culture valued mission completion. It made them terrifying opponents. Back on Earth, Pendak completed their research and prepared to return to the Council with findings that would change the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever. Dr. Sun Wu Han walked them to their shuttle, still smiling that predator's smile. You came here to understand how we survived, Sun Wu said. Did you find your answer? I think so, Pendak replied. You survived because you're the ultimate predator. Fast enough, strong enough, smart enough, and most importantly, stubborn enough to refuse to die. That's one way to look at it, Sun Wu agreed. But there's something else you should know. Everything you saw, everything that scares you about Earth, we're not even the apex predator here. We just outlasted everything that tried to eat us. The shuttle lifted off, leaving Earth behind. Pendak watched the planet shrink in the view screen and thought about the implications. If humans weren't even the top predator on their own world, what did that say about Earth itself? In orbit, Vrex Commander Zalthor received reports that his fleet had lost 200 ships to human defensive positions. His admirals were panicking. His soldiers were demoralized, and the humans were just getting started. He sent a final transmission to Earth hoping for surrender terms. What are you? The response came from Captain Hyun Lee, broadcast across every channel so the entire galaxy could hear. We're from Earth, and we're done playing nice. Part 4, The Hunter's Moon. The emergency council session was chaos. Representatives from 17 species crowded the chamber, their voices overlapping in a dozen languages, all saying the same thing: stop the humans. The Vrex had retreated to their home territory after losing most of their fleet. The crisis was over. It was time for peace talks, treaties, and reconciliation. Ambassador Jiwon Kim listened to them plead and beg and demand, and she felt something inside her break. Not in a bad way, more like a dam breaking, releasing pressure that had built up over 50 years. Enough, she said, and her voice cut through the noise like a blade. The chamber fell silent. Speaker Velthari's crystalline form flickered nervously. Ambassador, we understand your anger, but we must pursue peace. The Vrex have withdrawn. The threat has passed, has it? Jiwon asked. The Vrex killed thousands of civilians on Petra 5. They attacked our colonies. They've spent centuries conquering and enslaving weaker species. And you want to forgive them because they ran away after losing a few ships? We must be better than our base instincts, argued Counselor Rinthal, an insectoid from one of the galaxy's oldest peaceful civilizations. Violence begets violence. We must break the cycle. Jiwon laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. For 50 years we followed your rules. We sat in your committees. We filed your reports. We were patient and diplomatic and kind. And you know what that got us? It got your people killed. Because the Vrex, like many in this galaxy, mistake kindness for weakness. She looked around the chamber at the frightened faces. We're not asking permission anymore. We're going to solve your Vrex problem. Permanently. The council erupted in protests, but Jiwon was already walking out. Behind her, Commander Taemin and Dr. Hana Choi followed, their diplomatic masks finally discarded. They were done pretending. Admiral Yuna Seo received her orders 3 hours later. She stood on the bridge of the newly arrived Earth fleet, watching her tactical displays light up with target designations deep in Vrex space. The fleet under her command was larger than anything humanity had revealed before. 30 warships, all of them built in secret over decades, waiting for a day that might never come. Today had come. All ships report ready, Admiral, her tactical officer reported. Yuna nodded. Set course for Vrex territory. This isn't a peacekeeping mission. This is war. The human fleet jumped to FTL and the galaxy held its breath. Lieutenant June Park led the special operations team that inserted into Vrex space ahead of the main fleet. His team of 12 operators moved through the shadows, invisible to Vrex sensors, using technology that shouldn't exist according to Council understanding of human capabilities. Because humans had been holding back. Not just in combat, but in technology. They had shown the Council only what they wanted seen, keeping their best tools hidden for emergencies. This qualified as an emergency. June's mission was simple: disable the Vrex early warning network. His team infiltrated 3 separate military installations in one night, planting viruses that would shut down communications when Admiral Yuna's fleet arrived. They moved like ghosts, killing silently when necessary, avoiding detection when possible. By the time the Vrex realized something was wrong, the human fleet was already in their territory. The Battle of Vrextar Station became a legend. The Vrex had fortified the station over centuries, turning it into an impregnable fortress with overlapping defensive fields and hundreds of weapon platforms. It guarded the approach to 3 major Vrex worlds. Admiral Yuna's fleet attacked it head-on. "They're insane," the Vrex station commander said, watching human ships charge directly into his defensive fire. "No one attacks fortified positions like this, except humans did, because humans had learned something in 10,000 years of warfare that the peaceful galaxy had never needed to understand. Sometimes the direct approach worked precisely because no sane person would try it. Human ships took damage that would have destroyed Council vessels. Their armor buckled. Their shields failed, but they kept coming, returning fire with a fury that overwhelmed the station's defenses through sheer aggressive persistence. Sergeant Minji Kang led the boarding teams when the station's shields finally collapsed. Her Marines cut through the hull with plasma torches and poured into the corridors, fighting room by room, level by level. The Vrex defenders were brave and well-trained, but they were defending. Humans were attacking. There was a difference. On the Council observation ship that had reluctantly followed the human fleet, Counselor Rinthal watched the battle with growing horror. They had never witnessed real war before. They had read about it, studied it academically, but seeing it was different. "How can they be so calm?" Rinthal asked Sergeant Minji during a brief lull in the fighting. The human Marine was checking her weapon, preparing to assault the next section, and she looked relaxed, almost bored. "Because we trained for this," Minji replied, "and because we're really, really good at it. But the danger, the death, the fear..." "Fear is just information," Minji interrupted. "It tells you something might kill you. What you do with that information is what matters. We use it. We don't let it use us." The assault on Vrextar took 16 hours. When it ended, the station was captured intact and human forces had secured a foothold deep in enemy territory. The Vrex lost 3,000 soldiers. Humans lost 87. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated what war looked like when waged by a species that had never stopped practicing it. Admiral Yuna pushed deeper into Vrex space. Each battle was faster than the last. The humans adapted to Vrex tactics within days. They learned from every engagement, adjusted their strategies, and came back harder. The Vrex had superior numbers and fought on their home territory, but it didn't matter. Human commanders had studied thousands of years of military history. They knew every trick, every strategy, every mistake that had ever been made in warfare, and they knew how to avoid those mistakes while forcing the enemy to make them. Emperor Karnzul, absolute ruler of the Vrex Dominion, watched his empire crumble. World after world fell to human forces or surrendered rather than face destruction. His military commanders reported impossible human tactics, told him about enemies who fought with a skill that shouldn't be possible. "They're just one species," Karnzul said to his generals. "How are they beating us?" "Because they never stopped fighting," replied the only admiral who had survived an engagement with human forces. "We conquered weaker species for centuries and called ourselves warriors. But humans, they fight each other when they don't have external enemies. They practice war like we practice art. It's what they do." Karnzul tried using the Council as intermediaries, offering surrender terms through official diplomatic channels. Admiral Yuna's response was broadcast across every frequency so the entire galaxy could hear. "We're not the Council. We don't negotiate with species that commit genocide." The human fleet surrounded the Vrex homeworld, and Emperor Karnzul broadcast a final message to the galaxy, hoping someone would intervene. "The humans are monsters," he said, his voice breaking. They'll destroy us all. They'll glass our world. Someone must stop them. The galaxy watched, waiting to see if humanity would commit genocide, if they would prove that all the fears about Deathworlders were justified. From Earth, a response came. It was an old recording, a speech from humanity's ancient history. The voice was rough, speaking English with an accent from centuries past. You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth. The council members who heard it looked up the quote's author, a leader named Churchill, from a war that killed 50 million humans, a conflict humanity called World War II, implying there had been a first one and possibly more to come. The galaxy realized the truth then. Humanity wasn't diplomatic because they were weak. They were diplomatic because they were trying to be better than their nature, because they knew what they were capable of and chose restraint. But when pushed, when their patience was exhausted, when gentle methods failed and innocent people died, Nature 1 Counselor Thessa, the empath, sent a message to Speaker Velthari that summarized what everyone was thinking. We should have listened to them. When they said, please don't push us. When they chose peace despite being able to destroy us. We should have understood what that choice cost them, and we should have been more grateful. Above the Vrex homeworld, Admiral Yuna prepared her final orders, and the galaxy waited to learn what Deathworlders did when the mask finally came off. Part 2. The Unveiling. The first thing the council noticed was the ship. It emerged from FTL space like a knife cutting through fabric, and every sensor in the Petra 5 system screamed warnings. The vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest council ship, but size wasn't what made the observers gasp. It was the design. Council ships were smooth and curved, built for efficiency and peace. This human ship looked like it was built for violence. Angular armor plating covered every surface. Weapons bristled from dozens of ports. The name painted on its hull read, Indomitable, in letters that seemed to promise exactly that. Captain Hyun Lee sat in the command chair, reviewing tactical displays with the calm expression of someone who had done this many times before. Around him, the bridge crew worked in silent efficiency, each person knowing their role without needing to be told. This was nothing like the civilian vessels the Council had seen humans operate. This was a warship, and everyone aboard her was a warrior. Vrex fleet detected, reported the tactical officer. 15 warships. They've established orbit around Petra 5 and are conducting surface bombardment. Communications, Hyun said calmly. Open a channel to the Vrex commander. The screen flickered to show a Vrex officer, scales dark with battle rage. You dare interrupt our conquest, humans? Your peacekeepers are not welcome here. Hyun smiled, but it wasn't the gentle smile the Council had seen from humans. This smile had teeth. This isn't a peacekeeping mission, Commander. You have 6 hours to withdraw your forces from this system. This is your only warning. The Vrex commander laughed. Or what, you'll write a report? File a complaint with the Council? Humans are soft, weak. We've seen your peacekeepers. They follow rules like frightened children. 6 hours, Hyun repeated and closed the channel. On board a Council observation ship, Ambassador Thessa watched with growing dread. They could sense the emotions radiating from the human vessel, and what they felt made their legs tremble. There was no fear, no hesitation, just a cold professional readiness that reminded Thessa of a predator watching prey. They won't really attack, will they? Asked one of the Council observers, a Lumine named Peltrick. The Vrex have 15 ships. The humans have one, Thessa whispered. But I don't think that matters to them. 6 hours passed. The Vrex didn't move. Perhaps they thought the humans were bluffing. Perhaps they couldn't imagine that a single ship would attack a fleet. Perhaps they had forgotten that not every species in the galaxy had evolved to be peaceful. When the timer hit 0, Captain Hyun gave a single order. Begin operation. All Marines to drop pods. Sergeant Minji Kang checked her armor seals one final time, then looked at the faces of her platoon. 40 Marines, veterans all, stood ready in the drop bay. They had trained for years in secret, away from Council eyes, preparing for a day that might never come. That day had arrived. Remember, Minji said, her voice carrying through their helmet comms. The Council is watching. Show them what humanity really is. The drop pods launched, screaming through space toward the planet below. Vrex ships tried to intercept them, firing weapons that would have vaporized any Council vessel. The pods' armor held. Human engineers had designed them to survive atmospheric entry through hostile fire, because humans always assumed the worst and built accordingly. Minji's pod hit the ground like a meteor, cratering the earth and sending up clouds of dust. Her HUD activated immediately, showing enemy positions, friendly forces, and tactical data. She burst from the pod with her rifle ready, and the first Vrex soldier she saw barely had time to raise his weapon before she put 3 rounds through his center mass. The battle for Petra 5 had begun. The council observers watched their screens in horror and awe. The humans moved like nothing they had ever seen. Where council soldiers would advance slowly, taking cover and calling for backup, human Marines pushed forward aggressively. They worked in perfect coordination, each squad supporting the others without needing constant communication. How are they doing this? Peltrick asked. The Vrex have superior numbers and defensive positions. Thessa couldn't answer. They were overwhelmed by the emotions pouring from the battlefield. The Vrex felt fear, confusion, panic. But the humans? The humans felt focused, determined. There was fear, yes, but they were using it somehow, turning it into energy that made them faster and sharper. Doyun Shin watched the battle from the intelligence center aboard the Indomitable. His job was to analyze enemy tactics and provide support to ground forces. What he saw made him proud. The Vrex were good soldiers by galactic standards. They had conquered dozens of weaker species. But they had never faced humans before. They had never faced a species that had been at war with itself for 10,000 years. A species that had refined the art of violence into a science. Enemy command center located, he reported. Sending coordinates to Sergeant Kang. Minji received the data and adjusted her route. 2 of her squads were pinned down by heavy weapons fire, but she didn't slow down. Instead, she grabbed a grenade from her belt, calculated the angle by instinct and experience, and threw it through a gap in the enemy fortifications that looked impossibly small. The explosion was precise. The enemy gun fell silent. Move! She shouted, and her Marines surged forward. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Vrex ground forces had been completely destroyed. Not defeated, not driven back, destroyed. The survivors surrendered, too shocked to keep fighting. In orbit, Captain Hyun's ship had disabled the entire Vrex fleet without destroying a single vessel. The Vrex commander stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His ships were dead in space, weapons offline, engines disabled, but his crews were alive. The human ship could have killed them all. Could have reduced every Vrex vessel to drifting debris. Instead, they had been surgical, precise, terrifyingly efficient. Why? The Vrex commander asked when Hyun opened a channel. Why didn't you destroy us? Hyun's expression was cold. Because we're not monsters. We're soldiers. There's a difference. The council observers returned to Harmony 7 station shaken. Speaker Velthari called an emergency session, and the chamber filled with frightened and confused representatives. They had asked humanity for help. They had gotten it. But what they witnessed had shattered their understanding of their human allies. Dr. Hana Choi attended the session, and this time she wasn't the friendly, accommodating scientist they remembered. She stood at the center of the chamber, and every species present suddenly realized how tall humans were, how strong, how their eyes focused forward like predators. You asked what we could do, Hana said quietly. This was us being gentle. We took prisoners. We avoided civilian areas. We gave them 6 hours to withdraw peacefully. That was gentle? Peltrick asked, their crystalline form flickering with distress. Yes, Hana replied. We could have glassed their positions from orbit. We could have refused to take prisoners. We could have ended this in 6 minutes instead of 18 hours. She paused. But we didn't. Because despite what you just saw, we're still trying to be better than our nature. Thessa stood, their legs still unsteady from the emotional trauma of sensing humans in combat. What are you? They asked. We thought we knew. We thought you were like us, peaceful by nature, violent only when necessary. But that's wrong, isn't it? Yes, Hana said. We're violent by nature. Our entire evolution was war. Every day of survival on Earth is a battle against a planet that constantly tries to kill everything on it. We didn't become peaceful because violence is foreign to us. We became peaceful because we chose to be, because we worked at it, because we decided that being civilized mattered more than being strong. She looked around the chamber at the frightened faces, but don't ever mistake our choice for weakness. When you needed warriors, we became warriors again, because that's what we are underneath all the diplomacy and patience. We're survivors. We're hunters. We're from a death world, and we're very, very good at staying alive. The chamber fell silent. On the tactical displays, reports came in from Vrek space. Their Dominion leadership was demanding vengeance. They were calling humanity's actions war crimes. They were threatening to unleash their full military might, 300 warships against humanity's colonies. Commander Timon stepped forward and opened a broadcast to the entire Vrek's Dominion. His message was only 2 words long, but they carried the weight of 10,000 years of human warfare behind them. Please do. Ji-Won woke up to the sound of fire. Her eyes opened slowly. She was lying on a metal platform inside a large chamber. The walls were dark stone, and high above her she could see flames. This was the incinerator, where the palace burned its waste. Where they burned bodies they wanted to disappear. She lay still and listened. 2 guards stood near the entrance, talking. "Did you see her fall?" one guard said. "Humans are so weak. One little poison and they die. The Emperor wants to invade their worlds next week," the other guard replied. "He'll tell the Galactic Council it was an accident. That she got sick and died. Nobody will know we killed her. And the other humans in the palace? They'll have accidents too. All of them. Then there's no witnesses." Ji-Won's fingers twitched. Her body was processing the poison, breaking it down molecule by molecule. The augmentations inside her were old, installed 30 years ago during Earth's darkest time, but they still worked. Her enhanced metabolism was burning through the toxins. Her reinforced organs were repairing the damage. She remembered the day she got those augmentations. She had been 22 years old and angry at the world. Earth was divided then, torn apart by warlords and dictators who fed on human suffering. She had volunteered for the experimental program. They had made her into something more than human, something designed to hunt monsters in the dark. They had called her Baba Yaga, the witch from old stories who lived in a house that walked on chicken legs. The witch who helped some people and killed others. The witch you didn't want to meet in the forest. For 15 years she had hunted. She had crawled through sewers and climbed towers and slipped through security that was supposed to be impossible to breach. She had left 47 warlords dead and 3 tyrannical governments in ruins. She had done terrible things for good reasons. And then the unification wars ended. Earth found peace. She had retired, choosing diplomacy instead of death. She thought she could bury that part of herself. She thought Baba Yaga could stay dead. But here, on an alien world, lying in an incinerator while guards laughed about murdering humans, she felt the old skills waking up. The old anger returning. The guards walked closer. "Should we start the fire now?" "Wait, let me check if she's really dead." Ji-Won closed her eyes and slowed her breathing. The guard leaned over her, reaching for her neck to check for a pulse. The moment his hand touched her skin, she moved. Her hand shot up and grabbed his wrist. She twisted hard. The guard screamed as bones cracked. Before the second guard could raise his weapon, Ji-Won was on her feet. She kicked the rifle out of his hands and struck him twice. Once in the throat, once behind the knee. He fell gasping. The first guard tried to reach his alarm trigger. Ji-Won was faster. She caught his arm, pulled him off balance, and struck the nerve cluster below his ear. He collapsed unconscious. She stood in the silence, breathing hard. Her body ached from the poison, but the augmentations were still working, still healing her. She looked down at her hands. They were steady, like the old days, like they remembered what to do even after 30 years. She searched the guards and found a communication device. She also took one of their knives, a long blade made of something that glowed faintly blue. Then she moved to the chamber's maintenance door. The palace was huge, and according to the maps she had memorized before arriving, the maintenance tunnels ran through the entire structure. Ji-Won slipped into the tunnels. They were dark and narrow, filled with pipes and cables. She moved quickly, her augmented vision adjusting to the low light. She had always been good at disappearing. It was one of her best skills. After 10 minutes, she found what she needed, a communication terminal used by maintenance workers. She accessed it using codes she had stolen from the palace database 3 days ago, during her first tour of the building. Always prepare. Always have an exit plan. Always know your battlefield. Those were rules she had learned long ago. She sent an encrypted message to Earth. The encryption was old military code, something only a few people would recognize. The message was short. Protocol Witch's house. I am operational. On Earth, in a secure facility beneath Geneva, Director Tai Yang was drinking coffee when the alert came. He read the message and the coffee cup fell from his hand, shattering on the floor. No. he whispered. She wouldn't. She promised she was done. His assistant looked confused. Sir, what's protocol witch's house? Tae Yang's face was pale. It means Baba Yaga is hunting again. God help whoever made her angry. Back in the tunnels, Ji-won moved deeper into the palace. She needed information. She needed to know what the Emperor was planning and how many humans were in danger. She found a data access point and plugged in the device she had taken from the guard. The palace security system opened up before her. She had been trained in systems infiltration decades ago, and alien technology wasn't that different from human technology. Both followed logic. Both had weaknesses. She discovered that Hyunwoo was being held in the lower dungeons. She also found files about the Emperor's invasion plan. He had assembled a fleet of 30 warships. They were planning to strike Earth's mining colonies in 72 hours. They would attack without warning, kill everyone, and claim the territory as their own. Ji-won's jaw tightened. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about protecting her people. She continued through the tunnels until she heard voices. 2 more guards were standing near a junction, blocking her path. Did you hear about the human ambassador? One said. Dead in the incinerator. Good. Humans don't belong in the Empire. Too weak, too soft. Ji-won stepped out of the shadows behind them. You're right about one thing, she said quietly. Some humans are soft. They spun around, raising their weapons. But Ji-won was already moving. She had fought bigger enemies, faster enemies, stronger enemies. These guards were trained, but she had been trained by the best killers Earth had ever produced. The fight lasted 8 seconds. Both guards lay unconscious on the floor. Ji-won stood over them, breathing calmly. Her body was still recovering from the poison, but the combat had felt natural. Easy, like riding a bicycle after years away. The skills never really left. She dragged the guards into a side tunnel and bound them with their own equipment. Then she took their armor and weapons. The armor was too big, but she made adjustments. Now she looked like another palace guard in the dim tunnel light. She continued moving, memorizing patrol patterns and security blind spots. She sabotaged 3 surveillance cameras, making it look like technical failures. She redirected 2 patrol routes by changing the duty rosters in the system. The palace was large, but she was making it her territory, one section at a time. In a storage room, she found supplies, food, water, medical equipment. She treated her remaining injuries and ate quickly. Then she found something interesting. A crate of small grenades used for ceremonial salutes. Not weapons officially, but she knew how to modify them. Hours passed. Ji-won worked methodically, moving through the palace like a ghost. She planted false information in the security logs. She created confusion in the command chain by sending contradictory orders from different departments. She was doing what she did best, creating chaos in enemy territory. Finally, she reached the dungeon level. The corridors here were older, carved from rough stone. The air smelled like fear and blood. She moved past cells holding prisoners from different worlds, aliens who had spoken against the Emperor, criminals who hadn't paid their bribes, political enemies waiting for execution. She found Hyunwoo in a cell at the end of the corridor. He was sitting on the floor, his face bruised. When he saw her, dressed in guard armor, he stood up quickly, backing away. It's me, Ji-won said softly, removing the helmet. Hyunwoo's eyes went wide. Ambassador? But you... They said you were dead. I saw you collapse. The poison... I'm harder to kill than they thought. She worked on the cell lock with tools she had taken from the guards. The door opened with a click. Hyunwoo stumbled out. How did you survive? How did you get here? How did you... He stopped, really looking at her for the first time. She was dressed in stolen armor, carrying weapons, moving with the confidence of a soldier rather than a diplomat. Who are you? Ji-won met his eyes. I'm still your ambassador. But before I was a diplomat, I had a different career. A different name? What name? She hesitated. She had hoped to never speak that name again. But secrets didn't matter now. Survival mattered. They called me Baba Yaga. Hyunwoo stared at her. That's a myth, a legend. The ghost operative from the Unification Wars. She's not real. She's real, Ji-won said quietly. And right now she's the only thing standing between Emperor Vorthak and the death of every human in this sector. Alarms began blaring through the corridors. Red lights flashed. They had discovered the unconscious guards. They knew someone was loose in the palace. Jiwon handed Hyunwoo a small device. This is a map to the Veloxian embassy. Go there, request asylum. Tell them what happened. What about you? Jiwon checked her weapons. I'm going to make sure the Emperor regrets trying to kill me. I'm going to stop his invasion. And I'm going to remind this entire empire that humans are not prey. She looked at Hyunwoo one more time. Go! Now! He ran. Jiwon stood alone in the corridor, listening to the alarms and the sound of guards running through the palace. She smiled, cold and dangerous.